This is really awkward, isn't it? Like sorting out an intro for episode 1. How do we go about this? So
we better get it right, boys. You're stuck with it.
We got to get it right, haven't we? So welcome to episode 1 of Bring It to the Table. Here we are. Basically having a bit of a chat with some people over the next few episodes and different topics, not just football. Obviously, football's going to be a lot, but yeah, it is what it is. We've got Nick there, who looks a little bit like Peter Griffin. He's semi-normal, but semi-not. And then we've got Harley, who's taken over from his idol, Phil Jones, with his recent haircut right now. That's what he's gone
It's
for.
great inspiration, isn't it?
What a legend that guy is.
Speaking of people within football, our guest today is none other than former England women's head coach and current coach at Stevenage FC, Mark Sampson. How are we doing, Mark?
All right, guys. Yeah, good to be here. How's everyone?
Yeah, we're doing well.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, good. Good start. Good start there, Nick, putting it out there. So yeah, I think basically as episode 1, we had to have someone with some good credentials coming on. You know, we've got to make a scene and obviously talk more around the surrounding area that we're all in and the football that comes to light there, because local communities and local football obviously is a big part of everyone. You know, everyone always looks to the Premier League and stuff like that. But realistically, the real heroes are the ones who keep that league going all the way from amateur, all the way through all the steps. So yeah, what questions have we got, Harley? Because you're starting.
Well, yes. Basically, start off with, how did you get into football?
I'm probably the same as you boys. Just started playing. You know, my family's a big football family. My father, grandfather, everyone really associated to me were football fans and played football. And then, you know what you're like when you're a young kid, you do what your mates do. And all my mates are playing football. So started kicking the ball around. And I think as soon as I did, you know, I realised then that my two passions in life, you know, friendship and football, were there in one box. So that's how I got into it. You know, like most people, I think, just kicking a ball around and thinking this is great fun.
So yeah, obviously for the people that don't really know, you come from obviously amateur all the way up, right? It wasn't just right, I played high standard, like League 1, League 2, and got basically given a coaching job. It was more so you enjoyed football, so you then went and pursued that passion a bit more, knowing that you wasn't realistically a professional.
Yeah, for sure. Like anyone who ever played with me or saw me play would back that up, that, you know, I was far from a professional footballer. I was a trier. That's how I describe myself. You know, I'd put a shift in. I'd be difficult to play against, probably difficult to play with as well. But I gave it a good go. I played for as long as I could. And then at some point, obviously, I had to make a decision between whether I wanted to pursue playing only semi-professionally, never going to be professionally, or really focus on the coaching side of it. So yeah, pretty young age, really. I got stuck into it. I found a passion in, you know, playing and just wanting to be involved in football, and actually started coaching my younger brother's team. He was 3 years younger than me, and just sort of fell into that way. I was watching the game and started helping out, and then enjoyed it and took it from there, really.
Yeah, so I'm sort of the same boat there. So I went to watch one of my little cousins play. I'd never coached before in my life, and basically their coaches were just dads, you know, on the sideline shouting some orders around and all that. And in the meanwhile, because they had 2 teams, one of their teams was just literally standing there doing nothing. So I was like, can't have that. So got a ball and just like got a little rondo go with there was only like 7 or 8 at the time. And yeah, like just sort of that, and then built on through. I'm now taking my first step into coaching adult football. I'm Hertford Heath's first team coach at the moment. Cool. My first season in adult football, but I'm also at the University of South Wales on their football coaching university course, and I've coached in America. But yeah, it's like taking that first step that you didn't even realise would be the step to a potential career that you're trying to follow. You know, it was just, I went to watch my cousin play, and then from there ended up coaching his team and winning a few cups and moving some kids on to your academy, really. And then from there, just built myself up a bit more confidence. And then because I was already playing adult football, it sort of made sense to take that transition. Now I'm doing my UEFA B into more like harder territory, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. I think, look, nothing ever beats playing. There's just smash that out there right away. There's nothing more fun than playing. But coaching comes a long way second. But you're involved, and for me, my passion is helping people get better, being around good people. And as a coach, you're lucky enough, and I've been lucky enough to be around players of every single level, really, and just try and help people get a little bit better. And at the start, that's just about understanding that they're never ever going to be professional footballers, but they love the game, and it's something that can help them be better people and bring a smile to their face.
So you said about obviously like having a passion for helping other people to get better and be the best they can. How did that tie into some of the roles that you have had at different clubs? Because obviously you've not always been a head coach. So for example, like Bristol is completely different to what you're doing at Stevenage now, as well as being head coach of England Women's. Yeah,
that's right. And I think that's been great for me, really. I think having experienced, everything from, coaching the under fours, and the objective being to make sure that, the kids just stay within the same facility for an hour. You're effectively a cheap childcare at that point, to obviously working with senior pros, international players. And I think all the roles really, like a lot of things, you can think people pay a lot of attention to what role and what status they've got, because, ego plays a part in human life. But ultimately, I think for me, at the core of what I want to do, what I'm passionate about, is helping and improving people. And I want to be in places where I can do that as often as possible. And even now, I'm in a great place where every day I get the chance to go in, luckily put the boots on, and just try and help people get better and see if they can be better footballers and better people. And if we can do it with a bit of a smile on the face, then fantastic. And I think all those experiences have just allowed me to hone in really on what the purpose is.
Yeah, it's good to hear. So obviously you said about like what you're doing now. How are you finding it at Stevenage? Because obviously it's been a bit of a up and down couple of years at the club.
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, it's a roller coaster wouldn't do it justice, really. But I mean, look, fundamentally, you want to work in places where people really care about the project. And project's not the right word, but people really care about what you're trying to do. And what I found at Stevenage is that, people like desperately care about how the football club does, whether that be, the supporters in the street, or the community department, or the academy, or the young players, or the senior players, right the way down from the chairman. Really, is like this deep passion about making a difference, about doing something. And for me, that's my fantastic motivation, to be involved in something where everyone really cares about getting better. And I think my experience at Stevenage, although it's been up and down and some real tough times and some real amazing times, it's given me an amazing life experience. I've met some amazing people, already friends for life. I've, found a club that I'm going to be a supporter of for the rest of my life. That's always happened with every club and every association I've ever worked with. So the good far outweighs the bad. It's about life, about meeting people, about experiences. And I've certainly had some amazing ones at this football club. And I'm certain, whether I'm there for a long time or not, more amazing times at the football club, which I'll enjoy either as a member of staff or a supporter.
Yeah.
So just to make sure there that Stevenage didn't pay you to say that you're going to be a supporter there.
Oh, no. Got me shirt, got Sampson on the back. My little girl's got his shirt on the back. She's 4.5 now, so I got 4 more months until I have to buy a new one.
Oh, bless her.
So obviously before your stint at Stevenage, you spent a lot of time in the women's game. What kind of big differences and similarities have you kind of picked up from that movement from the women's game into the men's league too?
Yeah, I think, look, there's loads of similarities first and foremost. We're all trying to play the same game. We're all trying to get better at it. So the similarities far outweigh the differences. And ultimately for me, it was just a new experience, because every level of football has got intricacies and context that until you're in it, you can't understand it. So for me to experience football league football on the hard front, right in the face of it, day to day for the last 2 years, has just been an eye-opening experience. And I think I've learned as much in the last 2 years as I've in the last 20, really, because like I said, the context of of how the game works and understanding what it takes to win and what the non-negotiables are at this level, has been a big learning experience. Ultimately, in my experience, I feel that whatever level you're at, there's just certain non-negotiables that you have to find to be competitive. So trying to work out what they are at this level has been a great experience. And sometimes I think I've got them wrong. Sometimes I've got them right. But now I feel I'm far more educated, understanding about what it takes effectively to be competitive and win at this level.
Would you say with League Two specifically, because especially with Stevenage, some of the pitches we play on, some of the teams we come up against can vary so much? Is that actually quite a big challenge with so many varying different teams of physicality, trying to get that mix right on a week by week basis?
Yeah, great point. I think this year in particular, the variation in pitches has been incredible. Really, it's effectively like playing a different sport. If you think of, like, we went on a run of games where we had Tranmere away, Crawley away, a home game amongst it, Newport away, another home game. Every single surface, obviously bar our home surface, which has been fantastic this year, it's just been completely different. Tranmere was rock hard and bobbly because it was frosty. Crawley was like quite tight and quite lively. And Newport was just the worst football pitch I've ever seen in my life.
So I was going to mention Newport.
Yeah. And so absolutely that's a challenge, because every football team, I think, wants to try and control as much as they can. It's impossible because the game's so dynamic. But obviously when there's so many variants, like particularly the surface, it is difficult to control the game as much as you want. And I think that's where it comes down to making sure that your team has got those non-negotiables at the level, and physicality certainly is an absolute non-negotiable at this level. If you can't compete physically in relation to first contact, second balls, and defending your own box and attacking the opposition box from set plays, then it's going to be very, very difficult to be competitive in this division. Even Crewe, I felt, are probably the best team I've seen in this league so far, eye to eye. They were good in those areas. They had tremendous physicality in terms of pace, in terms of power, in terms of strength. And they were very effective in terms of delivery at set piece and the height they had to defend and attack them.
So talking of variables, the boys at USW are desperate to know about sort of what does it feel like knowing that if you was in a few more leagues higher, you'd have VAR. So certain situations that do arise on a football pitch with people maybe missing things and stuff like that, having the ability to obviously step back, look at that again, and then make another decision on that. Like, how does that affect knowing, like I said, that a few leagues up, you're going to start having that? Does it annoy you or what?
Well, we've had a couple of, haven't we? A couple of over-the-liners. I think Forest Green was the first one we got where the lino actually said it was over the line. I think we had Matty's header at Tranmere and a couple more I can remember where I'm thinking, that's a goal, that is. It looks like a goal anyway. And again, it's just another component that makes things a bit more variable. Yeah, I get VAR. I think it has to happen, obviously, with the stakes and the technology. Why wouldn't you use technology if it's there? But clearly at the moment, they haven't quite nailed it. So I'm glad that we're not part of that experiment. I'm hoping that in years to come, when they get it right to that level, they've gone through all the hard bits, that it can then come into our level and really help the game benefit. But for me as a football fan, first and foremost, a lot of the intensity of the game is lost really when VAR has a big part to play.
But then, like, it's all dependent on country for me, because you've got other countries that are doing it right with VAR. Like, they seem to get every decision right with the help of the assistant referee. And then you've got some countries that don't, but they have their referees mic'd up, so you then can hear and grasp what they're actually talking about. And especially for like fans watching on TV and stuff like that, you get that other voice. You get to actually know what's going on rather than just going, I think that's a goal, with no one else explaining it. Yeah,
fair. And look, I'm a Welshman, obviously, so we're all big rugby fans, aren't we? And in rugby, I've seen it used like to perfection. It's been a massive game changer in rugby to make the game far more effective. And I think there's a lot of lessons football can learn from that. But it also took time. Like, there's always going to be teething problems with anything new you bring in. And I think with football, there just needs some clarity and people to get used to it. Like, do I like the idea that someone could be offside by a fingernail? Probably not, as a football fan. But offside is offside. And if we are going to do it,
confuses me. The finger one confuses me, because you can't play the ball with your hand. So when they give the offside for someone's hand being offside, it's a bit of one of those. Is it really offside? Because it's not a part of your body that's in play.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think, look, the lawmakers have a lot to answer for, don't they? You know, football is a simple game, as everyone says. And I think if we're not careful, we're going to make it very complicated. You know, I understood handball 20 years ago. My dad understood offside 20 years ago. But both of us now aren't sure how it works. So for me, you just got to look at the lawmakers and say, how have we got to a position where we made something which was quite clear, although there was some debate around it, very, very complicated.
You mentioned, obviously, that you're a football fan, and I think everybody's dream is to go to the World Cup. So obviously you've done that with England women's. So what was that experience like, coming from a fan's perspective as well as a professional's perspective?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think, amazing experience, first and foremost. There's no other way of putting it. Like, amazing. Wouldn't swap it for the world. And the difficult thing with football is that I am a football fan. Like, I went to watch Wales in the Euros in 2016. I went to watch the Northern Ireland game in last 16 and the semi-final where I still find that tough to talk about now, where Portugal stole it off us. And they are still my best football experiences. You know, like I'm a Cardiff fan. I was at the FA Cup when we beat Leeds. You know, and as a fan, you can just live in the moment. You can really live it. You haven't got anything else to worry about other than, like, I'm going to just give everything to this team and get right behind them, and at times have a moan, at times have a cheer. But obviously, from a professional perspective, you've just got a million other things on your mind, and at times, regrettably, you just don't savor the experience. And I think part of me over the years, I've learned to try and do that more. You know, in that World Cup in particular, you know, I can barely remember like the crowds and the feelings and the emotions. I just remember the facts. Whereas as I've got older, I've tended to try and, you know, take it in a little bit and feel those moments. Like, you know, we scored a last minute winner against Grimsby, and, you know, you have to live those moments. You just do. You know, you just have to remember them to be like, this is why we do it, really. Like, to see everyone like losing their stuff. Like, this is why we do it, lads. You know, like, how many of these moments you're going to have where, you know, you boys saw the game, like yeah, devastation, absolute devastation. Like, you are on your knees thinking, what have we done? And in literally the next second, it's to elation. And I don't know where else you get that. I don't know what other, you know, profession you get that. Isn't it? It is a cool experience when it happens in your favour.
And that's what you really miss with crowds not being there. Imagine if we had the crowds there in those kind of moments, then it just makes it 10 times more exciting and jubilant.
Oh, more than that. I think, like, it is. We're obviously going through the process of completing our league campaign and massively committed to that and giving everything. But yeah, without a doubt, it's just, I felt it last year, like League Two football from the sideline with the crowds. And I can remember specific games where the crowd made a big difference, home or away. I remember feeling like, oh, we're in trouble here. You know, the crowd have got up and things started to change. And then other times where I'm thinking, we're going to do this today, because vice versa, our crowd started to get behind the team. So definitely, everyone's missing it. It's just not. It's not what football should be, really. And I think I definitely feel that when it comes back, people will just say, like, I can't wait. My brother's a big football fan. He hasn't watched the game in months. We always talk. I just can't wait to like walk into the ground and just suck the air in and think. I think we'll all just appreciate it a bit more, to be honest.
Yeah,
having an actual match day with that routine as well. I think that routine is key, because at the moment for me, it feels like waking up on a Saturday. It doesn't feel like a weekend. Like, although there's football on TV, I'm not going out there. I'm not setting up the cones for the boys and getting them all warmed up, getting them ready to get on the pitch, having that team talk, and then watching them more than anything. Like, even that, like, that's just local football. And I know I'm a coach and I have to analyse and talk to the boys through everything, but realistically, it's just that standing back and watching them play and watching everything that you've worked on in training go through, and like just go from that training ground to the pitch and just watching it and being amazed. And then, like I say, meeting all the boys in the pub to then proceed to go to a game after that with them all. And it's that whole match day routine is completely missed.
Yeah, definitely. And look, like we obviously beat Hull in the second round of the FA Cup this year on a penalty shootout, you know, and I look at the Cheltenham fans or the Marine fans, like, you know, a once in a lifetime tie. You know, what a year to get it. Can you imagine it? You know, like you're Cheltenham Town and draw Man City at home. You're thinking all the years I've been to watch us get knocked out by non-league clubs and scruff away in a Conference South and Conference, and suddenly the one year we get Man City, I can't go. You know, and they were the ones. They were the moments where you thought, oh, it would have been nice here to share that with our supporters, because they are great moments. But look, there'll be many, many more to come. I'm sure that it's just hoping we can get everyone back as soon as possible.
All right, I feel like we're going down a hole now, though, in terms of what's currently going on pandemic-wise and stuff like that. Hopefully, in the next few months, that starts to open up again a little bit more. So I think we've got to sort of change it up a little bit in terms of that. Another question from the USW boys. It's coming down to barriers now. So coming from, like we touched on at the beginning, that amateur playing to then going into the professional game. Did you feel like at any point or deal with anything, but because you wasn't a professional footballer, someone maybe looked down on you differently or didn't let you do something that you thought you could do just from the fact that you didn't play football?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's just part and process of the journey, really. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, not saying it's a good thing. You know, obviously, when you've got a playing background, you're going to get massive experience in understanding so much of the game from playing it. And ultimately, we're all trying to help the players. You know, they're the star of the show. And, you know, I think as a coach who hasn't played, you've got to do the hard yards, and you've got to get enough knowledge and earn enough credibility where you can, you know, look a player in the eye and ultimately, what does a player want? They just want to know that you can make them better. You know, and I think if a player feels you can make them better, you're going to be in a good spot, because, you know, in my experience, as Brendan Rodgers says, there's only three things players want. They want to get better, they want to win, they want to play. And if you can help them do those three things, I think you get, you know, massive credibility, and then suddenly the barrier's broken down. But absolutely, if you haven't got that background, you've just got to do a little bit more. You've got to be a bit more. Your attention to detail has got to be better. You've got to effectively build a relationship of trust where the people you're working with say, yeah, you know, I think this person can help me get better, so I'm going to buy into their ideas. But absolutely, that's got to be earned.
Yeah, 100%. But then the rise of it in sort of modern football now, you know, you've got players like managers like Mourinho, who didn't have a playing background, to then come in and be so tactically sound on everything that he does. Everything was so methodical. I think that sort of has changed it up a little bit, because our lads often wonder, the USW lads, because we're all in this process now to potentially take football as a serious full-time job. I'd say 95% of them didn't have a playing career. So then they don't really know the next step, going from coaching your local sides to then pushing up through the ranks. So advice-wise, what would you give there?
I mean, look, I think ultimately it's about practice. I mean, I people talk about the 10,000 hours rule. You know, when I was young, I must have racked up. On average, I was probably coaching 2 hours a day minimum for 7 days a week for at least 5 years from the age of 16. And, you know, that was hard yards. That was balls, bibs and cones in the back of the car. You know, the car's soaking wet. You're training on bad pitches, not knowing when players turn up. Half of them don't want to be there. You know, and ultimately, any experience is a good experience. And I took so much from that. So for me, my advice to all young coaches is like, got to get your hands dirty. You got to get out there. You got to coach. There's no shortcut. You just got to get out there, get on the grass, practice, you know, rehearse, learn, put yourself in any opportunity you get. You put yourself in a difficult situation. Don't turn it down. You know, and I think from there, then you hope that at some point you get offered an opportunity. And if you've got that backup experience, you're going to be in a better place to take it.
Like I say, playing experience obviously helps massively when you go into a coaching position. So obviously you've now been working under Alex at Stevenage for a good part of the last year. What's it been like for him, his transition essentially from player to coach?
Oh, he's done great. You know, he's done honestly incredibly well. I think, it would be fair to say that I think the job Revs took, if there's 92 Football League clubs, there wouldn't be many more difficult ones than the ones he took in the summer. And that first and foremost is a brave step. You know, he could have easily decided that, you'll wait a few more years, but, he's obviously massively passionate about the football club. He lives local. He played for the football club, and he is a massively motivated guy. And one thing with Revs is that I think, like in any industry, I always phrase it with managers and leaders is that, wherever you work, if your boss picks up the phone at 8 p.m. to say, look, I need a favor, can you do this for me? Based on your relationship with that boss will dictate how well you do that task. And if you haven't got a very good relationship, or that boss hasn't worked to develop a good level of relationship with you, it'll be, I can't believe he's asked me to do this 8 o'clock. Oh, God, what a joke. I don't like this. I'll get it done. But if that boss has developed your trust, has got a good relationship with you and been honest and open and spent time with you, then you want to do it to the best of your ability for them. And in football, the manager's having to ask players to go that extra 10% every single day. And what Revs does brilliantly is he builds relationships with people where they feel that they want to do it for themselves and for him. And I think once you've got that quality, you can learn the rest. You can learn the rest, the tactics, the training methodologies, the physical side of it, the psychological. You can learn all that, but there's just some non-negotiables as a leader that you have to have. And I think, I'm lucky enough to work with a manager who I think has got the key skill that football managers need, in my experience.
So you obviously said about building relationships with the players and everyone at the club. Have you ever had to deal with someone who's not necessarily been too big for their boots, but they've come with a little bit of an ego, where they've come in from another club where they're thought of very highly and then it hasn't really worked out for them? So have you ever had to deal with anyone like that?
Yeah, I think all the time. Yeah, football change rooms are pretty consistent. You've got your 80, 10, 10, I always call it. You've got 10% who are just absolutely brilliant. Like we got a few this year. We got a real few in that top 10%, where they're just every day they are at it. They're desperate to get better. They're desperate to win. They're desperate to help the team. They're just your cultural architects. They just drive the group forward. Then you've got pretty much 80% of the group who are just not sure of their path, and they just try to work out and figure out how things work before they decide which camp they fall in, because they can either fall in that top 10%, or sadly, there's always a bottom 10 who, don't want to work hard, maybe a bit too big for their boots, as you put it, and really aren't really massively interested in the team. They're more interested in themselves. I think every group has got them, and I think certainly last year, it'd be fair to say we had too many in that category, and it was then difficult then to get the right balance within the group. But certainly as a coach, you come across it all the time, and people can fall from camp to camp, because obviously in football, only 11 can play. So at the end of every Saturday, there's going to be some disappointed players and there's going to be some happy players, and managing that is all normally the key to making sure you've got a really tight together team.
So what was it like? Because obviously you say Alex come in the summer and there was a massive clear out of players. What was it like having to essentially start over again for like the second year in a row?
I mean, massively tough. I think you can't underestimate the circumstances of the league. It was obviously at the time there was no clarity on what league we'd be playing in, and to my knowledge, I think we're the only team in football history who ever experienced that. I've looked at it and researched it, and I can't think of another team that didn't know what league they were playing in within a month of the season starting. It's just unheard of completely. And obviously the circumstances were just completely a one-off situation, and very difficult situation for so many people. So it's the least of everyone's worries. But obviously for the football club, and especially the footballing side, that was a massive challenge, because everyone wants stability in their life. Everyone wants to know what they're signing up for. And I would always describe it as, if take any profession you want, if you're asking someone, well, do you want to come and work for us? And you're like, okay, I'll work for you. But they then provide an option for them to say, well, look, we're not sure whether our office is going to be in Stevenage or Newcastle. That's going to put a lot of people off. A lot of people, hold on a minute, well, I'm going to wait until I know whether you're based in Stevenage or Newcastle before I decide to come. And I think that for me was how the challenge was in pre-season. We're trying to convince players to come in, but also not knowing what type of team we've got to prepare to compete in the competition we're going to compete in. So for me, to be as competitive as we were up until January, given the circumstances, given the fact that we pretty much already played a pre-season friendly by the time we knew what league we were going to be and assembled a squad, I think is a massive achievement, a really massive achievement. I think we're now feeling the fruits of all that hard work and difficult moments, now with a bit more of a positive run and a positive turn.
I think that's got to be key to the man management side though, right? So being able to convince those players to come in without really knowing what was going on, so you was able to build their trust enough from what I assume phone calls, emails, whatever, and to throw your own image across into them to them to buy into whatever it is you were selling at that time, because you realistically didn't know what you were selling.
Absolutely right. And I think what the gaffer and the coaching team did well was we sold a vision. We were honest. Like we can't tell you what league we're playing in. We don't even know. But what we can tell you is this is what we're going to be about. This is the type of football we want to play. This is the type of environment we want to create. This is how we feel we're going to improve you. And I think for a lot of players, going back to that point, is that players want to feel like, I'm going to get better, but also that we're going to play to their strengths, because so much of football is about context. We see so many players that are obviously talented players, but for whatever reason can't perform at a club. And I think with the key players we highlighted in pre-season to sign, we made it very clear to them about, we're not only bringing you in because you're a good player, but you fit our way of doing things perfectly in terms of your personality and obviously your superpowers as a footballer. And I think luckily for us, we got the right people on the bus, as many as we could at the time. And they all did a great job to keep the team competitive. And obviously in January then, with a bit more clarity and, a bit more time to work, I think the gaffers made some brilliant additions really to make the team far more stable, far more experienced, and have so much more balance to it.
So I think what we want to know is, are you going to sign Nick to replace Big Keith as your kit now?
Yeah, well, look, I think Keith's part of the furniture now. He's the only person that likes cricket in the club, so I got to keep him because with all that's going on in India at the moment, I need someone to talk to.
Are you going to come play cricket then, are you, this season? And come play for the Nebworth?
Yeah, he obviously he talks a game, Keith. He tells me he's a good batsman and he can.
He talks a good game of everything. I drink with him in the pub. The only thing I see him on is dartboard.
But I mean, I've seen him play for Partizan.
To be fair to Keith, he can ping a ball. Yeah, he can throw a dart as well. He can't move. I always tell Keith, I'm not sure whether it's a good or a bad thing when you're very talented at all the games that you play at the pub. But he's clearly obviously spent a lot of time down the pub, because at darts and all that, he's pretty decent. It's because it's all the things that you don't move when you're doing it. That's big key for me.
Yeah, and he tells me he can swing the bat as well, but you get to see when I'm chucking a bit of leg spin down.
Does he have someone run for him though?
Yeah. Well, he hits boundaries apparently.
So yeah, Nick's coming in. He can do the same job, but lazier apparently.
Yeah, well, with the amount of staff we've got, we'll always have a spare pair of hands. I can tell you that.
Sign me up. So obviously you've had a stint as a manager and a coach. Might be a slightly difficult question to answer, but which one have you preferred? Do you prefer coaching and having that role kind of in a bit further back, or do you enjoy being front of the touchline, kind of the face of the team as it be?
Yeah, look, I think all the experiences have been amazing, and I go back to that point I made earlier about, I think people get very tied up in status, in positions, but ultimately I've learned that if you want to be happy, you've got to find out what makes you happy. And ultimately for me, whether I've been a manager, head coach, assistant coach, first team coach, academy manager, academy coach, I think from all those experiences, I'm very clear that what makes me happy and when I'm at my best is when I'm in a position where I can help players and improve players. And in the position I'm in now, it's great for me. And in all my experience, wherever I've worked some brilliant places and some really rubbish places. The best, they've all got clear characteristics. The ones I didn't enjoy was where I didn't enjoy the people I worked with. I just, for whatever reason, we didn't see eye to eye. We didn't enjoy each other's company. We just maybe weren't a good fit. But I think for you to enjoy your work, you have to enjoy the people you're with. And in the place we've got now, like the gaffer's a good friend of mine. Like, you know, whatever happens in the future, we will be friends for life. And there's so many of the players who, you know, are just such good guys. You want to be around them. It's a great place to be. It's an energizing place to be. So for me, I want to always be around those environments. I don't think the position is important for me. It's more about, you know, what responsibility have you got? What are you actually doing? Are you having an input? And ultimately, what are people like? Is it something that, you know, you feel a part of it? And I massively feel a part of what we're trying to do here. Loads to do, obviously, but, you know, we're chipping away, and ultimately it's an exciting process, I think.
I think that's key to life, right? That's just a key to life, not even just football and jobs and that. You've got to surround yourself with people you like, who make you into something better because they're pushing you, but in the right way.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And look, you know, if we've all been in environments. Certain environments bring the worst out of us. Certain environments bring the best out of us, and you want to be in those environments which bring the best out of you, because then you're just a happier human being. So, you know, for me, when you find one, you've got to cling on to it like your life depends on it.
Look at us, we're all becoming inspirational speakers in one podcast. It's gone from like an interview to inspirational talks. So you're going to see us on TikTok as background noise soon.
No, we did discuss Keith's cricket ability for 10 minutes. So
Keith is a whole interview himself. So
I reckon we get him on next week.
Yeah, you have to allocate a few more hours, I think.
Yeah. Mark, what questions should we ask Keith?
Oh, good one. I think the first one would be to Keith is, what would I ask Keith? You'd have to ask him. I would definitely ask him about his view on the cricket. He is a big cricket fan, Keith. You know, and we have some real debates about England's batting lineup, and, you know, whether it's the pitch or whether it's the quality of the players. So for me, you get stuck into that. Like, you could be what's that podcast with Tuffers and Vaughan? I quite like that. You know, like you could be like that, having a chat with Keith, I think.
I don't think he'd stop. I think we should ask him if he's colourblind, though, with recent kit clashes.
Yeah, to be fair, it's not his fault. I mean, where was that away game we wore the most mean? Was it Newport we wore the mean kit?
Oh, it was Newport or Crawley.
Yeah, one of those two. But
shout out to Harley's mum, by the way.
I remember seeing it all hung up, thinking, Keith, like, we're not wearing that tomorrow, are we? But it's not as in control. I won't give him too much stick.
Was that the Port Vale game where they have the shocker kit themselves, and that's just
the one? Yeah, it was Port Vale. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Red shorts, red socks, navy top.
Yeah, didn't think that one through too much, did we?
Well, unfortunately, it'll be a few more promotions till we get a third kit, so we have to sit tight.
So one of the questions I actually got from a few
Harley's back interviewing again.
Yeah, let's bring it back to what this actually was. Yeah, so one of the questions I got from the Borough lads was, obviously we've had to use a fair few young players this season. What has it been like seeing the academy talent transition into the men's team? Because it's obviously quite a jump in any level of football.
Yeah, it's a big jump, especially when you haven't got the maybe go between. Like, you know, obviously a lot of clubs now have got an under-23 structure. Yeah, we've got an under-18, so to move from being an 18-year-old player to a first-team player is a real big jump. And obviously, we're in a business of winning, and, you know, patience is not a virtue that's going to be there in a football league. So I think the gaffer's done great to show patience, to show belief in young people, and the likes of obviously Jack Smith, Arthur Ironton, Louis Fernandez, even young Mackay, Townsend West, who's been involved with the first team. I think, you know, what he has done is he's shown the football club that if you're good enough, you're old enough. And if you show the right attitude, then you'll be given an opportunity. And those players, you know, whatever happens between now and the end of the season, will have played a big part. I think Jack's played more than 10 games this year. And he's played a big part in this season. And obviously a few of them, mucked in last year as well, and at times when we picked up important points. I think because we sort of avoided relegation by a technicality in the end, a lot of the points we picked up was sort of forgotten. But actually those young boys at times, played their part in gaining points that effectively, even given the technicality, made sure we stayed in the Football League. So they've done great. And it's obviously a much more enjoyable experience for a football club when you promote your own players, local lads who've come through the system. So I just hope we can get more and more. We've got a good academy. I don't see any reason why not.
You mentioned Louis there, and obviously Louis gone out on loan a couple of times this season. How big of a difference does it make for a player to go out on loan and get regular football at that sort of age?
Yeah, players got to play. Yeah, they've got to play because especially this year with the schedule, and normally anyway, but this year in particular, when the first team are playing so many games, we're obviously not training to the intensity that we would like to on a consistent basis. We're having to obviously periodise our weeks based on when the games are. So for the boys who aren't playing, particularly the boys who aren't playing consistently, it's very difficult to give them the training they need. So for the players to go away and get games, especially in environments where winning's important, is huge. And with Louis, I speak on behalf of the gaffer probably, but I think Louis was a tough one because obviously he could have played a part. He could have, done a job for us in certain games, in certain positions, but the question's got to be answered. What's best for the boy, what's best for the player at any given time. And if he was only going to play a maximum of 10 games, he now need the start of the season, the end, and some of them from the bench. Arguably, in my view, it's more important he goes away and get 30, 40 games, gives him a chance in pre-season to come back and be a first-team regular, because you only learn through games. And especially in our position at the start of the season, where every point is precious, it's difficult for players to come into a team that weren't winning, that have been on a really bad run, that are trying to find ways to be competitive. In those moments, it's tough for younger players. And that's why, in particular, someone like Jack Smith has done so well.
How important is it because we've got quite a relatively young squad overall this season. I mean, even players like Elliot Lister are still relatively young in their football career. How important is it to have the players like Scott Cuthbert and Prosser in that squad to have that senior experience to support those boys through the season?
Oh, it's invaluable. Absolutely invaluable. And not just on the field, but off it. I mean, I have to say that the guys you just mentioned, they're some of the best professionals I've ever known. Vince Slot, Prosser, Cuthbert, to name just a few. They're like machines. Like they train every day as if their life depends on it. And if they're on the bench, they prepare as if, they could come on for 1 minute. I mean, in that 1 minute, they are determined to do what the team needs to win. So for those guys are just the glue of the team, really. They just make sure that the team keeps moving forward in good and bad times. And they make sure that the environment is always an environment that has a good balance between stretch and support, which by that I mean, we're really pushing people, but we're also making sure that we're supporting people. And I can't speak high enough of those boys. Even some of the boys last year, Farms, Jozza, they're just top pros. And I can see why they've had such good careers. And that's why the young players need them around, because they just have to look at it and go, goodness me, if that's what it takes to have that type of career, I've got to up my game. So absolutely invaluable, worth their weight in gold, on and off the field, really, I think.
What was it like? Obviously, I mentioned about having the clear out last season. What was it like losing players like Farman, for example, who were obviously big influences in the changing room?
Yeah, look, it's always tough. Look, it's tough losing players either way. Whether they're moving on from their decision, the club's decision. It's always tough losing players, especially players who've done well for the football club and you've obviously built a relationship with. But again, going back to the circumstances, we were always going to find it difficult to convince players to stay who were obviously determined to play in the Football League. And, that was just out of our control. And I think what we did very well was we, worked out very early, were decisive in what we were going to do, didn't allow things to fester. And that meant obviously both ways, bringing people in and letting people go. We're a big believer that, pre-season is important. You have to develop chemistry. Organisation's important, the football team. Team spirit's important, but team chemistry is just as important. And people forget that, how you develop, how the centre-backs understand how they play together and then the goal and vice versa. So absolutely, it's tough losing any player, but tough losing those senior boys in particular. But obviously, a lot of them have gone on to do well, especially Farms. I mean, looking forward to seeing him down at Lannex again, seeing that massive boot come out. We'll have to find a way to deal with that one.
I think that's it's going to be a resurgence this year. You know, in terms of like even just like semi-pro football, where a lot of that's been cancelled now. So a lot of people's only option now is to go and play Sunday League again. You know, these players have been used to be getting paid what I call beer tokens to play on a weekend, training a few days a week, to basically having nothing when everything kicks up again because their leagues all got cancelled. So yeah, they're gonna have to go right back to boots on ground, and I think it's going to be a bit of normality back for a lot of people, learning to have fun with football again, because a lot of it gets a lot serious. Obviously, the more you go up, which is only right, but a lot of people fall out of love with it. Some of the best players that I know who have been in and out of academy systems and played for teams such as Luton, they fell out of love with the game when they got released, you know, and they still played a high enough standard where they could have made some money out of it. And their saving grace was coming back to playing Sunday League football on a rubbish pitch at 10:30 in the morning and waking up hungover and then playing the best football of their life with their mates. You know, it's going to be a resurgence, I think, this year again.
Yeah, look, I mean, I never went a year without playing football from the age of 4 to now. I just really feel for those young people who've missed out on, you know, just playing with their mates every Tuesday, every Saturday. It's tough, really. And yeah, you know, why do we do it? Because we love the game, you know, and it's probably one bit of advice for a coach is that if there's one thing you are going to do, you know, make sure the players love the game.
It's always got to be that way. You fall out of love with the game, you fall out of love with everything, you know, in my experience anyway. You know, I stopped playing for maybe a year or so, and it was sort of the worst time of my life, realistically. I thought I didn't want football. I fell out of love with it playing wise. And yeah, when I come back, I found that I was a better player because I enjoyed it more for one, and I had that confidence to step back and go, I'm not going to do that. Let's play this way. Let's play that way, you know. And again, I think that just leads back to real life. Step away from something that you love if you're not loving it anymore, and you'll find to love it again.
No, look, even the players in our team. I mean, when look at Listy now. Listy's on fire at the moment, and you know, you could talk about all the reasons why he's on fire. There's some tactical reasons. There's some technical things, some physical, and clearly some psychological. But ultimately, he's just loving playing the game again. He's just found that spark. You know, fire's been lit again inside him, and he's playing with a zest, with an appetite, with a fearlessness. And when you got that mentality, like, you know, you can start to do good things, and long may it continue with Listy and a load of other boys.
Yeah, I think the spark, you can see, we saw the spark the other night with Danny Newton as well, and I think those two up front in the form they're in is making this season look to be very exciting.
Yeah, he's a legend. He's an absolute legend. I mean, I think a lot of the time as football people, we forget football's a game of mistakes. You know, it's a difficult game. You know, if you watch a game down the pub and we're watching the Champions League final, I guarantee there'll be more criticism than praise, even though it's the Champions League final, the best players in the world. And I think often with players, we can be guilty of, you know, looking at what they're not very good at and forgetting what they're great at. And Newt's appetite, his work rate, his desire, his commitment to the cause. I mean, yeah, the flick on Tuesday night, like, you know, he's got what a 1 in 100 chance of winning that ball, but he goes with it like his life depends on it. Flicks it on, and he'll be devastated that the ref stopped the game. He'd have been happy to be like, leave me unconscious for 30 seconds, give Listy a chance to score. Like,
yeah,
you know, like I just love players who just play with their heart on the sleeves and just play with just absolute, like nothing else matters bar the ball and the goal. And Newts is that type of guy. And with that comes some mistakes and some not great decisions. He's still learning, but you know, I mean, you can't ask any more in terms of attitude and work rate and desire and want to do well. I love him. He's a top lad.
Would you say people like that are the best kind of people to work with within a football team? You know, the ones who just don't have a filter and it's 100% all the time.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's times you should probably filter it. I'm not gonna lie. I remember showing a video at a team meeting of like when Rocky chased the pigeon, being like, I've seen that before, Newt, haven't we?
So I've watched them for 2 years. I know exactly what you mean.
Exactly, you got to start catching them, son. But no, look, from the day I came in, like one of my big objectives when I came in was to work with players on an individual basis, and Newt was someone who was just so open-minded of things. He is desperate to learn. Like he comes in every Monday, like, what can I do better? What do I do wrong? What do you think of that? If I haven't sent him some clips, he'll drop me a message to be like, what's going on at the moment? Anything happening in the world? And,
He's a little needy.
He is a bit needy, but they're the players you love, because I'm a football obsessive as well. And, we'll always talk about the top boys in the world and what can you learn from them, and why can't Newt aspire to be someone like Jamie Vardy? Why not? Will he ever get there? I don't know. But why can't he? He's got similar qualities.
Yeah, 100%.
Works just as hard, got a similar level of pace, but he's just got to improve some things in his game. But absolutely, I mean, the question is, do you want to work with those boys? Of course you do, because they just give their all. And what more can you ask for? What more can you ask for? There's not been 1 minute of any game in my time at the football club where Danny Newton hasn't been 1,000% committed. And if you've got a team of them, you'll be okay. It's then the quality of the other things that come with it that make you a good team.
Talking of improvement, what I've noticed is as we've started to speak to you, Mark, Harley and Nick are really pronouncing their words and making sure everything sounds really proper. These are boys who are all gangster usually, 100%.
We're on a budget here. We've got to make sure you can hear through our mics.
I saw you earlier, Nick. You was like, "Hello, Mark. I'm pronouncing my T's today."
Well, you're lucky. I've been speaking to some of my friends today back in Wales. So normally I speak a lot more with a Welsh accent when I've been speaking to them. So I think we're both in the same boat trying to drum it down.
My university lectures, all thick Welsh accents.
I know.
I have to actually play it on like 1.5 speed because a lot of them speak very slowly.
So on Twitter recently, I've seen that you've also been talking to the development squads as well. How is it with a club like Stevenage, where from every level throughout the club it's so tight knit? How important is it for the club to be so together from those really young age groups all the way into the first team?
Yeah, it's non-negotiable. I mean, football history tells us that there's only two routes to being successful in football. And there's just no other way. You either chuck a load of money behind it, which at the moment we can't do, or you create a plan, you create an identity, and you bring people together and follow it. And if you look at the clubs who've done that over the years and gone on to achieve great success, you can attach that quality to all of them. There's some clubs starting to do it now. I look at Barnsley now, for example, who are knocking on the door in championship playoffs, like 3 or 4 years ago, new vision, clear identity, patience, persistence, consistency, and obviously now it's bearing fruit. So all of that has to be important to us. And I think one of my lessons from the women's game was how important access is, because in the men's game now, like the access side of it's gone away. It's a bit of an ego thing that, I'm a player. I don't want to do that. I'm not signing that. I'm not part of this anymore. I'm a player. But in the women's game, the biggest super strength of women's game was access, is that players were accessible, social media, at games, whatever else. And I think at our football club, the club are doing a great job of trying to find that right balance of obviously being professional and focusing on winning, but as well, making sure that we do give access to, supporters, to the community, to young players, and, things like the pre-match show now have just started. Like, it's just really cool. Like, just bring the football club together, give people a voice. And I think we just got to keep doing that moving forward and make sure that, ultimately every asset to us is huge. We haven't got many. So every single supporter we've got, every member of staff we've got, every player we've got to use that strength of unity to help us move forward against teams who can ultimately buy a lot more resource than us.
Harley, you muted.
I know, I realised.
I prefer
So
that
for any of
question.
you who aren't going to be watching,
We're professionals, you see.
for any of you who aren't going to be watching and are just listening to the straight podcast, Hardy just tried to do a really detailed question and made a complete and utter fool of himself. It was really good.
So back to my question. You obviously mentioned resources. So what has it been like working with? We all know we've got one of the smallest budgets in the league to bring in players on frees, basically, rather than fees.
Nice little poem, that. I use that as our strapline. Frees, not fees. No, I think, look, I've worked in various organisations, environments where I've had the best of both worlds, really. Incredibly limited resources for most of my career, and a couple of jobs where you've just got resources come out your ears. And I think the moral of the story is that the less the resource, the more creative you have to be. And also it does allow for creativity. You need to find a USP. You need to find something other than money that defines you, that gives you a strength over the people who've got money. And I think what we've tried to do is try and identify what is our USP, what gives us an identity, and ultimately how can we be creative to find solutions to problems that maybe people with money haven't even thought about because they haven't got to. We have to think about travel. How can we find a way to get a bus that is suitable for our players, give themselves a chance of competing on a match day? How are we going to eat the right food? Yeah, well, he's got a few tasty fares. The next one. And I think it just allows you to be creative. Resources sometimes, create laziness. I experienced that. You can just assume that things will get done and you'll just pay for it. But when you haven't got resource, you have to find solutions to problems creatively because the answer's not there by just chucking money at it. And I think that's cool. I like that. I like that side of it. I think that, just keeps you on your toes and keeps you being inventive and keeps you finding new ways to be competitive.
So
it allows you to give certain players the opportunities that they ordinarily wouldn't get. We see it with Stevenage, especially. We've signed a lot of players from non-league that ordinarily, if with the big cats, if we're talking the Boltons and the Salfords of the league, wouldn't take a single look at. Whereas because we can be creative and kind of have faith in these lower league players. Charlie Carter is one, I think, that really stands out in Stevenage, that has come from non-league and played an absolute blinder in the Football League.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think what we try and do is, with recruitment is, look at what the players are good at and work out, does that fit what we need in our team? We always tell a story of, we always remember it, Fernando Torres. At the time, he was probably the best striker in the world at his latter days at Liverpool. And who'd have thought after a £50 million move that he wouldn't have scored a goal in 6 months for Chelsea? But so much of football is about context. At the time, Liverpool were very much a counter-attacking team. They had, the opposition would leave space in behind them. They had amazing passers, Gerrard, Alonso, to name a couple, who could play him in. And the team was based around him. You went to Chelsea, they were a dominant side. They had a target man in Drogba. They were very cross-orientated. So they weren't playing to his strengths. As a result, he found it very difficult. Went back to Atletico and bang, context is different, performances are different. So I think we're very clear that, we need to know how we want to do things, because once we know how we want to do things, we can find players that our style suits their strengths. Because if we all play to our strengths, we look good at what we do. But if we're asked to do things we're not very good at, it makes it very difficult.
Silence on the floor. I think Nick and Harley have run out of questions for once, which is
and that's hard to do.
Usually means it's really bad. So we throw it Soccer AM style, because obviously they do some funny interviews and like things like who takes the longest in the shower. Obviously at the club, not out of us four boys. That'd be a bit weird.
I think that'd be you, Joe.
It probably would be me. You are right there. But yeah, as a football club, like who's the most? I want to say like materialistic in that sense. Love to sit there in the shower and look at themselves.
Good question. I mean, I got to be honest. I'm normally grafting away at that point. What you forget is it's such an easy life being a player, isn't it? You play the game, you get your gear, you go home, and the staff are stuck. analysing, clipping, especially with a schedule. You finish one, you're on to the next. So I don't know really. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely not some of the senior boys. Scotty's not gonna be spending much time with hair gel. I can tell you that.
Maybe not on the top of his head. You never know how he keeps that beard pretty bushy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think he likes to brush, something anyway. But I'm going the same way, so I can't be criticising anyone.
Right, Mark, we are trying to do a bit of a recurring trend with all of these podcasts that we've got coming up, and obviously key part of football is the banter and making team cohesion, and a lot of that is coming from obviously discussions between the boys, and then keeping themselves occupied at the club. What is the boys' fine list, or what is the most naughtiest fine on that list? Do you know?
Oh, good question. I know. Look, it's normally the younger lads who obviously accumulate most of the fines. The gaffer's massive on punctuality, so like no one's late. Everyone knows the score. Like if you are late, you are going to get the wrong side of the gaffer. So like you just got to know you're working for and play to their strengths. So all I can recall really, is that Luther's normally in charge of it. He's the one who's on everything. He's the one who collects the money. And I remember to the point last year is that there were so many fines last year. I think the boys invest in the card machine. Save the lads having to bring cash.
That is the dream of every Saturday league team in the UK, I think.
But obviously
struggling with fines and everyone.
Exactly.
I've only got coins, so I haven't got any cash on me.
That's about the long and short of it, I think.
Right, what would be your dream fine list then? If you could write one for the boys, what would it be?
Honestly, I've never liked fines. I always think they're.
Did you get a load of fines? Is that what it was? Was you getting them the most?
Suspensions mainly. So in my day, you had to pay a tenner when you got booked.
You got
only a tenner.
Yeah, only a tenner, but obviously they add up. A lot of the clubs I pay for, I'd be in the negative. My brown envelope would be I owe you. So no, I think I try and stay well clear of fines, and I'd probably just say to the lads, like, I'd like to fine ones for just being grumpy, to be honest. That's the thing I hate the most. We're in such a privileged position as footballers and football coaches and people in the game. Like, to be grumpy at a football club it's a non-negotiable. It's inexcusable. So for me,
it's the dream job, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I think every job, every hobby, once it becomes your job, fails to become your hobby anymore. Sadly, it is obviously you see things in a different light, and you're obviously having to do a lot more about it. But yeah, I mean, look, would I swap it for the world? Absolutely not. I'm hoping that in some capacity I'm working with players the rest of my life. So I'm incredibly lucky, privileged person to be on the grass every day trying to help these guys get better.
Sure. I think I have got the most important question of the evening. Is Keith still in charge of the music?
To be fair, like, honestly, I'm obviously 38 now. I'm getting a bit on, but I think his playlist is like really good. Like, obviously, when the boys are gone, Keith's playlist comes on in the training ground, and quite often there's like a really good mix of, you might get like an 80s classic followed by like a modern dance tune, and then like some 90s hit. Just a complete variety. And I'm pretty chilled in music. I listen to anything, so I'm probably the only one who likes it, along with Keith.
I'm pretty sure he's just taken that from the jukebox at the pub. That's
I wouldn't. I think that's why I enjoy it, to be honest.
Top 50 hits on the jukebox. They're going in my playlist.
Yeah,
that's Keith in a nutshell.
It just saves me 50p having to pay for it.
Well, Mark, it was fantastic talking to you for episode 1 of
pleasure
of the podcast. But yeah, it was brilliant talking to you. I hope you had a good time, and maybe we'll get you back on in the future.
No, great guys. Happy to help, and good luck with everything. I hope it all goes well, and you get a few more interesting guests than me on, and get a few listeners.
But you've made Harley's night. You've made Harley's night, year, week, everything.
Well, I've got away with it. I was expecting far tougher questions, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you're saving them for episodes.
Yeah,
I
there
think
was,
we've done the ones that everyone wants to know.
you
know?
can ask Keith those ones.
Yeah,
right. We're gonna get Keith in next. If he doesn't come in, then Mark, you've got free reign to do what you want to him.
Well, he's also got. I think Keith will have to figure out how to use Zoom. So that'll be a
Can't
first
Zoom from a
challenge.
Nokia.
But I have to get him on the phone while he's in Pizza Hut.
Right, fantastic.
All right, cheers, gents. Awesome.
Sorry.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, man.
too.
And you stay safe, eh?
Bye.